What's going on, guys? Time bringing you my NHL 23 wish list. A few weeks ago, EA announced the NHL 23 technical test, which is otherwise known as the beta, and I saw some rumors saying that's going to be coming on August 30th. I couldn't find anything confirming that, but I feel like the trailer's got to be around the corner, so I'm just going to give you guys my thoughts on what I hope is in NHL 23. You guys let me know in the comments section what you want to see in the game. Now, I'm going to be breaking down this video into each game mode, but first things first, before we even get into that, something that I think will help out the entire game, every single game mode, is cross-play or cross-platform. NHL desperately needs this as the smallest sports game. I saw Madden 23 does not have this, but FIFA 23 does, so there is, hope here that NHL 23 could get it. I feel like with NHL having the smaller player base, it would really benefit from cross-play for anyone playing HUT, EASHL, or even online versus. I also think the HUT market as a whole could probably benefit from cross-play. It would have a bigger market. It would probably be easier to get some of those rare cards you guys are always looking for. As well, too, even for franchise mode, I feel like if roster share could benefit from cross-play, where any of you guys on PS5 could actually download my roster, say Tugi's roster. PS4 probably not, because if you guys look at like the FIFA 23 chart there, it looks like FIFA 23 is going to be cross-console, but not cross-generation, so I assume if NHL 23 did get it, it'd be like the same thing, since FIFA is like the big dog. If FIFA can't have PS4, Xbox Series X, NHL probably can't have that either. But as I mentioned, guys, crossplay I think is the biggest need for NHL right now. It can benefit every single mode, so that is the #1 want on my wish list. Now, getting into the game modes, guys, of course, we're going to start off with my favorite. That is franchise mode, and everyone's most wanted thing, I think, for franchise is probably still GM Connected. So I got that at the top of my list. Honestly, I didn't really play too much GM Connected back in the day. I played it a little bit, but it was really hard to find like 30 people who are all going to be on the game all the time, actually, playing their games and stuff. But I know it's a big one for the community, so I have it at the top of my list. After that, probably like a more personal one for me is more accurate player ratings. Personally, I think this is a must. Similar to crossplay, the more accurate player ratings doesn't just affect franchise. It affects anyone just playing online versus. It affects HUT, because a lot of times the HUT ratings are based off of the regular ratings, even though obviously they aren't exactly the same. Also, too, it'll make for more realistic franchise mode, where more realistic trades are happening, because Keith Yandel is no longer an 84 overall top 4 defenseman. He's actually like a 78, kind of subbing guy. And for anyone who makes custom rosters, like say me and Tugi, our lives would be so much easier if the rosters aren't such a mess when the game comes out, as we don't have to do as much work when creating those rosters. So again, more accurate player ratings I think is a must. I actually really like what Madden did with the Madden's rating hotline. I would love to see that implemented in NHL, but I'll have to wait and see, I guess. So kind of on the same vein, guys, the next thing I want to see in franchise is better AI GM logic. I feel like the AI GM are always making really questionable decisions, and that's putting it lightly, whether it's trading a top prospect for a fourth liner, signing 2 starting goalies, costing like $15 million total, not signing a starting goalie, I see that one all the time, letting top prospects go to free agency for nothing when they could easily sign them playing in the AHL. I also find they don't prioritize signing star players nearly enough. That's why you always see McKinnon, Matthews, etc. in free agency. Then you go and look at the team, and the reason is not because those guys necessarily want to go to free agency, but usually the team has no cap to buy them, as they wasted it all on role players opposed to their stars. I also see them wasting money signing, say, like 9 NHL defensemen. Even if injuries are on, 9 NHL defensemen all making, 2.5 plus is way too much. They're also completely unwilling to retain salary apart from like the deadline, it seems, which a lot of times makes trades unrealistic. I feel like, say, Bobrovsky at 50%, even with 5 years left, Florida would be willing to do that for the right price, but in-game, I feel like they would say no to 4 first-round picks, you know what I mean? So, AIGM definitely still needs some work. And speaking of Madden, guys, the next thing I'd love to see in NHL 23 franchise mode is player preferences. Madden showed this off in their franchise trailer, and basically, every single player is different in regards to signing a contract, where they sign, how much they sign for, based on team loyalty. For instance, Crosby's been with the Penguins for like 17 years now, so obviously, more likely to sign with them than a new team. You also have the hometown discount, so like Tavares choosing the Maple Leafs for less money opposed to, say, the San Jose Sharks. You've also got the big market, Panarin going to the Rangers. Do they have friends on the team? I remember, for instance, Tobias Ryder signed with the Edmonton Oilers to play with Draisaitl, his German countrymates. Do they want to play in their home country? So obviously only applies to Canada and USA, but for instance, Gaudreau wanted to go back to the States, sign with Columbus. They could have that in the game. They want to play somewhere where there's less taxes. Maybe it's a player looking to make the most money, so they're more likely to sign with Tampa Bay, Florida, or Dallas because they have less tax there, and maybe even you could offer a little bit less, but your offer is actually equal, even more than a team like in California, Canada. This is definitely like kind of high-level concept. I don't see NHL adding anytime soon, but really would be really cool. And maybe you can even have a player that just likes the warm climate. So for instance, Austin Matthews, maybe he's from Arizona. Maybe he wants to play somewhere warm, which is what he's used to, so he could sign in Arizona, Vegas, California team, one of the Florida teams, against Dallas, something like that. I think all those would just be really cool and help make, free agent signing not only more realistic, but also a lot more fun. And now the next thing on my wish list, guys, I feel like is a small thing, but again, would really help with the realism of franchise, and that's being able to actually trade conditional draft picks. So, if you guys watched my one franchise mode where we were the fantasy draft team, I traded away a first-round pick to get Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. It ended up being like a top 5 pick, which wasn't my plan at all. So it would be really cool if I could have added a thing where, like, the condition is no top 5 pick, otherwise moves to the next year. Again, it really helps with realism. As well with that too, I think with player signing, actually being able to give out no move clauses, no trade clauses. Players that currently have them actually have them in game, so it's hard to move those guys with bad contracts that have those, or even just hard to trade a star player if he wants to stay on your team. As well too, actually adding RFA arbitration. That way hopefully we have less RFAs just sitting unsigned in free agency throughout the summer into the fall. A lot of times even a whole year they sit out. Hopefully that would kind of fix those issues. With that too, guys, would love the ability to move draft picks outside of franchise just in the roster player movement screen. Obviously this is big for custom rosters, as once all the trades start happening at the deadline, if say like Ottawa gives up a first, second, third for DeBrincat, in game now they get DeBrincat for free since we can't move the draft picks over. So I think that's huge to actually make roster sharing as good as it can be. As well too, in terms of realism, I'd love to see real coaches in franchise. I'm sure that's a licensing issue they haven't figured out yet, but I think again would really help just add to that realism of franchise. If I can go out and sign John Tortorella or whatever, and his coach personality is like a hard ass or whatever, I think that would just be so much fun. And now the next one, guys, we've been asking for so long. I'm not sure if it's ever gonna happen, but that's to have the playable All-Star game back in franchise mode, as well a playable skills competition on top of that would be even better. I know for the All-Star game, I remember talking to some of the devs and they said how it was a bit of an issue with it being like a 3-on-3 tournament. It wasn't really something they had, but I feel like it's been long enough now, like hopefully they can add that into the game at some point. Not just for franchise mode, but I feel like on its own it'd be a really cool mode. Like maybe you have some friends over, you want to do a little 3-on-3 tournament, you could do it via like the All-Star game mode. Also too, you could even play through the skills competitions with your friends if they add fastest skater, hardest shot, whatever other ones they're doing at the time. Like the breakaway challenge, for instance, I think that would be awesome. I also think too, if they did add the skills competition to franchise, they can make it even better. If say you're the Anaheim Ducks, Zegras makes the All-Star games and gets elected to the breakaway challenge, he wins that, maybe he gets like a +1 deking from that, would make like the All-Star game even more immersive in franchise, actually worth something. I think there's a lot of really cool possibilities with that mode. And now speaking of the All-Star game, guys, something similar that I think there's almost no excuse not to be in franchise now that they have the license, and that's the World Juniors. The World Juniors are now in NHL 22. They're going to be in NHL 23. Put them in franchise mode. Like, how cool would it be? You don't even have to play through the tournament. You can just do that outside of franchise. But if I'm the Detroit Red Wings, we get to, Christmas time, and I see Simon Edvinsson made the Swedish World Junior team. I see that, he won a silver medal. He had 5 points in 9 games. I can see his plus minus, all that stuff. And maybe too, if they have a really good World Junior tournament, they could actually get a little extra boost in rating or potentials. I think that's pretty realistic too. I remember 2017, Nico Hischier had a really good World Junior, helped him go first overall above Nolan Patrick. I think everyone sees what Connor Bedard's doing right now with the World Juniors. I mean, he's already the first overall. It's making him like even more so the first overall. If he lights it up again this Christmas, like the dude's gonna be, I don't know, he's the next, best thing since McDavid and Crosby. I feel like it would honestly make franchise mode so much more fun. And a third special event, guys, I want added in NHL 23. So we got the All-Star game, we got World Juniors. I would love to see them bring back the Winter Classic. Now, I feel like if you want to play it, you can do that anytime outside of franchise, but to actually play it in franchise, your team has to be selected. So in like the message center, every single year you'll see, Toronto, Detroit selected for the Winter Classic. If you're not those two teams, you can't play in it. So the year that you are selected, obviously it'd feel really cool. You want to play in that or whatever. Maybe it's based on, how well you did the year before. If like you're doing like the owner mode, maybe your fans are like, really rising, so they want to have a Winter Classic in your city. A lot of, different possibilities there as well. And now getting to the more nitty-gritty parts of franchise, guys, I'd love to see more realistic sims in terms of like the points the players are putting up. I shouldn't have to be constantly, adjusting the simage and scoring. I'd also love to see goalie stats that are more reflective of real life. Like we saw with Shesterkin this year, NHL goalies are pretty good. I find in NHL 22, if you get accurate point totals, the goalie stats are always way too high, like close to 3 goals against, barely above 900 save percentage. And with that, I'd love more realistic shot totals. Right now, I feel like medium's not enough and high's too much, so something in between. Two guys, I think it'd be really cool if the crowd size actually reflected team performance. So if you're tanking on the Coyotes, that building should be half full. I'm actually really curious to see if they're going to have the new College Arena in NHL 23. That might be kind of awesome. 5,000 people. So even if you're doing super bad, maybe that thing, you only got 2,500. Also, too, I'd love to see an improved Stanley Cup celebration. I remember back in the old 2K games, you could actually skate around with it. How cool would that be? On top of that, too, with winning the Stanley Cup, I would love if the next season, that first game, you actually have a banner ceremony where you guys lift up that Stanley Cup banner. So just another thing to kind of add to your success throughout your franchise career. I also think it'd be really cool if they add the ability to retire player numbers. So if the Pittsburgh Penguins, Crosby finally retires, you of course retire 87. Maybe you're doing like a 25-year long franchise mode. Some prospect you drafted was a beast for you for like 20 years. You retire his number. And with that, the AI teams would also be able to retire numbers. So the Washington Capitals, for instance, would of course retire OV's number 8 as soon as he retires. I feel like that's another small feature that would really go a long way. Now the next thing I want to see guys in franchise, this would definitely be a lot more work, but that would be an actual awards ceremony. I always love the end of the season going through the awards, seeing which ones we won, who won what, but imagine an actual ceremony sort of similar to Be a Pro where they have like the player model, so you would see Austin Matthews go up, take a picture with the Maurice Richard. If you won multiple awards, sometimes guys will win like 4 trophies, you'll actually see them there with the Maurice Richard, Art Ross, Hart, maybe like the Selke, Ted Lindsay, whatever it is. It'd be so cool to see. And I think with that too, I don't know why it's not already in the game, they should definitely add the GM of the Year award into the awards. Like, that's the only award that you as the GM could actually win. Maybe you made some really nice trades, some really nice signings, and for the game to actually recognize that on that page. I'm not sure why it's not already in there. They have the Coach of the Year award, which isn't really something that in your control, but GM of the Year award I think would be absolutely amazing. On top of that too, guys, another thing like with the retired players, with the awards, want to have the Hall of Fame in the game, and so after a player retires, we do see the retirement screen. It could literally just have a star that says, this player was inducted to the Hall of Fame after retiring. This player was. Again, really simple. It could just be like, if player has X amount of points per game over the career, X amount of games played, they get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and all it is like a little star to say that they, were chosen for the Hall of Fame. Again, I feel like that's another small thing that would really make the game mode that much better. And now just a couple more things here for franchise, guys. Honestly, these last 2 things are probably what annoy me the most in the game mode right now. The first is the fact that every time I make a trade, the lines auto-reset, they're completely scrambled up, not what I had at all, and if you're playing with chemistry, trying to max out the chemistry, it's so time-consuming. Like when I record my franchise modes, I spend more time editing the lines, trying to maximize chemistry, get the guys where I want than doing anything else, especially since I have to redo it after every single trade. I wish instead if I'm playing with my NHL team, I trade a 4th liner, that 4th line role's now vacant, I trade for a 3rd liner, I can fill him into that 4th line spot, then I can switch him out with like a current 3rd liner or whatever, and the rest of the lines stay the same, which save so much time. Same thing too, a lot of times I'll make an NHL trade, and the AHL lines get scrambled up, or vice versa, I only trade an AHL player, and all of a sudden I gotta redo the NHL lines, like, makes no sense. That needs to be fixed. And the final thing, guys, you probably know what's coming. When you finish a franchise, like I'm finishing my franchise wish list here, all you get is franchise mode is now complete. How unfulfilling is that? How anticlimactic? I want at least a screen. It doesn't have to be a video or anything, just a screen to show up and say you were a GM for X amount of years, you won X amount of Stanley Cups, President's Trophies, Clarence Campbell's, whatever, your final record, maybe something that could show like your biggest trade. How cool would that be? Your biggest free agent signing, just simply based on the money or the rating for the free agent you signed. They could even add something like your highest draft pick ever was Connor Bedard, 1st overall 2023. If they really wanted to get in depth with it, they could be like your best draft steal ever was 5th round, some like AI generated medium elite player with 65 rating. Like, that'd be so cool. Again, I feel like there's a lot of wasted potential right now in franchise. I know for a fact there's no way everything I just listed is going to be in NHL 23, but I hope a lot of it is. I hope, some of these things, if they're not added in NHL 23, get it put into NHL 24, because, like I said, I feel like a lot of this stuff is relatively small, but will really make the game mode that much better. And now next year, guys, sticking with the single-player modes, we're moving to Be a Pro. I think my first want for this would just be more story elements. I really feel like that mode could use a bit more drama, like off ice. I think it'd be cool, instead of, needing $20 to pay for bowling, maybe you get stuck with like a $50,000 rookie bill. You have to decide whether you pay for it, don't pay for it, ask some of the guys to split, like actual, real world things players have to deal with that would actually maybe have a bit more consequence. Like, say you choose not to pay it, and now the veterans on the team aren't happy with you. Maybe too, like if you go on a really long cold streak, you get put on the 4th line. And maybe too, if you play Be a Pro like I feel most people do, which is kind of hogging the puck, trying to score all the goals, your line mates are going to have a conversation with you about having to pass the puck more. So if you don't start doing that, they aren't happy with you. And because they're not putting up as many points as they're used to, you actually cause them to ask for a trade. Obviously, that's just a couple examples, but I feel like there's a lot of different story elements that can be added to this mode to make it more realistic and a lot more fun. With that too, guys, obviously right now you're able to kind of buy nicer cars, buy nicer houses, but you don't do anything with it. It gives you like actual player stats, which is already a little bit strange, but it'd be cool if, like, opposed to just a picture of your new car in your house, you at the very least got like a little video of your player using it. So if you buy some like new Lamborghini, you can see your player in the Lamborghini just driving it down some road, even if it's just a quick like 5-10 second clip. That's so much better than just a picture. Same with like buying a mansion. Maybe it shows you, you know, shaking hands with the realtor outside of the mansion in game. Again, I think that's like kind of the bare minimum for that stuff. And obviously if you wanted to go to the extreme, it'd be actually driving around in your car, actually walking around in your house. More similar to like the NBA 2K stuff. As well, guys, with that, I think we definitely want less repetitive dialogue and cutscenes. I think a big reason why I don't play as much Be a Pro, even though they've made it, you know, better with the story stuff, is because after that first year, aside from some unique milestones, it's kind of the same cutscene shots. It's the same, you know, questions and answers over and over. It just gets very, very repetitive. And then finally, guys, I think one thing I'd love to see brought back, a lot of other people too, and that's being able to play from PEEWEE to Pro like you could back in NHL Slapshot on the Nintendo Wii. I know National did a series with that last summer. It did really well. So clearly, like, the people want that. So hopefully EA can give the people what they want. And next year, guys, looking at Hockey Ultimate Team, the number one thing on this list isn't so much for me, but I feel like it's the most common thing I've seen, and that's adding the leaderboard back. I'm not sure why they ever took it out of HUT. Obviously, it's pretty cool to actually see where you rank up in the world against everybody else. Why would you take that out? Obviously, rivals, you could say, like, I'm Div 1, Div 2, whatever, but the leaderboard's just kind of like exactly where you're at. You have the record and everything. It's a weird thing they took out. Hopefully they can put that back in. Next up, guys, I have less repetitive sets, more variety in how you acquire players. I feel like every event is essentially the same thing with a different skin on it. I think it'd be really cool if they really, you know, every event you don't know what to expect. Like, on the way you acquire the players, the cards you have to use, whether it's playing games, doing different challenges. I think mixing it up every single time would make the game mode a lot less stale and obviously a lot more, you know, interesting for people that are constantly grinding HUT. With that too, guys, I think it'd be awesome if they had better guaranteed rewards for champ/rivals. I know a lot of people complain about, you know, finishing top 10 or whatever, and a lot of times all you'll get is this like really expensive pack, but if you have bad luck and you don't pull anything good, you're essentially just grinding all week for nothing, which obviously doesn't feel very good. Now, you could take the guaranteed coins, but I feel like the guaranteed coins aren't quite as cool as like a guaranteed really good player, and make them tradable. Like all the untradeable awards they had this year, there were so many of them. You end up just having a team of untradeable players. Like, that's not cool at all. After that, guys, I would say, in regards to like less repetitiveness with the sets, also make HUT Rush less repetitive. Even if every single event they had different tasks you had to do, I feel like the actual gameplay of it was always the same. It was just people rushing, doing the cross creases, trying to get the quickest win possible, as that's how you earn the most points possible to rank up the most in the mode, when that wasn't what the mode was about at all. It was about scoring the coolest goals, throwing the biggest hits, and ended up just being like an all-out cross-crease fest, trying to beat your opponent as fast as possible, because the faster you win, the faster you get those points to rank up. So I feel like really what they have to do is make goals worth less, but make dekes, big hits, even big saves, really, I guess, worth a lot more. So the mode is, you know, more fun, and maybe actually have tasks that are fun to do. A lot of the tasks were sometimes like next to impossible. A lot of them were just a slog to get through. So that mode could definitely use a bit of work. And now, speaking about how HUT Rush was kind of a chore to get through, worse than that, I would say, was the solo challenges. Sometimes you complete all the challenges first period, and you just had to sit there waiting for the game to end. So I think a really nice feature added this year's game would be the fact that if there's 3 challenges in your solo challenges, you get them done in the first period, the game just ends. It doesn't make you sit there and complete the game for no reason. Like, you went in, you scored 3 goals, completed 10 passes, won 5 faceoffs, end the challenge. I don't need to sit there, you know, waiting for it to end, especially if it's like 3+ minute periods. You're just wasting away my life. Next thing too, guys, this is something I've wanted for a long time. That's a better bid system in the auction house. I think it'd be really cool if they had something similar to eBay, where, say I see Connor McDavid on the auction house, start price is like $1,000, I'm willing to spend $50K on him, rather than sitting there and constantly going back and forth with somebody, constantly having to check my watch list to see if I've been outbid. I can essentially just put in a bid to beat the 1,000, so I put 1,500 bid. The game then asks me, what's your max bid? I say it's 50K, I can leave, it's all good, which again would be a time saver, not having to go back and forth. And now the next thing I'd like to see added to HUT, guys, I actually mentioned the devs early on in the year, and that's being able to use any version of a card to upgrade the X Factor. So the prime example of this for me was when I got that like 90 overall free Austin Matthews, and I had an 88 X Factor. It was like, what am I supposed to do here? I'm slowly upgrading the X Factor Matthews, so for the time being I gotta use the 90. Then once my X Factor gets higher, the 90 is no good to me. Like, I should be able to trade in that 90 Matthews to the X Factor to at least, you know, use it as the base. Like, the very bare minimum, a special card should be worth the base when upgrading. If not, you know, worth the base plus one X Factor collectible. If it's way higher, it's worth, you know, base plus 4, something like that. I think would be very, very cool. On top of that too, guys, I know a lot of people have been mentioning to me that they want to see something similar to MLB The Show moments added to HUT. I feel like, again, it's kind of like a better version of solo challenges, actually makes playing single player a lot more fun. And then the final thing, guys, I'd like to see, not only in HUT, but just in the game as a whole, is a head-to-head record. I think this is something that they used to have in NHL games. I swear, like, I remember, you know, seeing my head-to-head record with some of my friends, but maybe in HUT, like, your guy you're always running into, before you load into the game, it shows. Your current record against them is like 7-6, so if he beats you this time, you guys are back to tied. You, of course, could also have that, like I said, with your friends. You know, you got an ongoing record there throughout the year. Even EASHL clubs, like if you're playing a lot of club, you could see when you play this club, your current record's like 12-10. Again, I feel like that's another pretty small thing that's still like really, really cool. And speaking of EASHL, that's the next one I want to talk about. I feel like the number one thing on this list I've seen a lot of people asking for, and that's to totally do away with the bag system and instead just earn points while playing your games, and then you can use those points in the store to buy whatever you want. Why, if I wanted to get, like, you know, this really special blue stick, I have to just be at the will of the EA RNG gods, when I instead could just, you know, go and buy that stick with the points I've earned from playing the games. Like, if there's no marketplace, then there's no reason to have random items more scarce than others. Like, really, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, you should just be able to earn your XP points, whatever it is playing the games, go to the store, buy whatever cosmetic item you want. It really sucks if there's something you would love to have, you've played 1,000 games, or maybe 500, say, and you still don't have it. It doesn't make any sense. Let people wear what they want to wear. If you play, you know, 10 games, you should be able to buy, like, any one item that's available to you, especially since, in my opinion, like the EASHL customization items, a lot of them really suck anyways, so let people, you know, wear the best stuff. Number 2 on this list, guys, is a spectator mode. I know that a lot of people in the competitive community, like my buddy Keanu, have been asking for this for so long, as obviously it would be a huge help when throwing 6v6 tournaments, not having to rely on, like, you know, one player's camera. You can, like, go and get different camera shots, move around to, like, different guys, go on a goalie cam. Like, there's so many different options with that spectator mode. I think it would really help kind of further legitimize the NHL esports scene, as it just make the production quality that much higher. And 2, with spectator mode, I think it would also just help 1v1, the GWCs. Again, you can get different shots throughout the game, opposed to whatever the camera angle is for the player's perspective that you're using. And then finally here, guys, for ESHL, I think it'd be really cool if they added custom matches. So I think when you think of any other game, pretty much, you have the ability to go into a custom match where you kind of edit everything to your liking. I feel like ESHL is probably where it would be used the most, where say you can go in and choose your arena size, whether it's international or regular. You can choose the length of the game. Maybe you're just looking to warm up for an LG match or whatever it is, so you want like 2-minute periods, or you're trying to have like a full-on practice, so you actually want like, you know, regular 5-minute periods. It'd be cool if you could also adjust the atmosphere for that, whether it be like a regular season game, playoff game, Stanley Cup final, an outdoor game. Again, just adding more customization options for the player. As well, one thing I think would be really practical, and that's the ability to choose what the score is when you head into the game. So if you were playing a game and a team got disconnected and it was 2-1 halfway through the game, you guys were playing, say, 4-minute periods, then you know that there was 6 minutes left in the game, so you could set the periods to 2 minutes each, and you could set the starting score to 2-1. That way you don't have to worry about, like, you know, just sitting there idle, waiting for the clock to run, dumping the puck to give a team a power play, laying a goal in, or whatever it is, all the things, you know, people currently have to do right now. I feel like custom matches would really help out in fixing all of that. And 2, guys, I think I mentioned it earlier, like with the team warming up, but I think having a practice mode ESHL would be pretty awesome, whether it's just free skates, running power play drills, maybe even running shootouts to work on your breakaways, anything like that. I think would really help, again, not only the competitive scene, but just, you know, players looking to get better in World of Shell. And lastly here, guys, I want to look at gameplay / presentation. The number one want for me would just be graphic improvements. Obviously, the game looks a lot better now on the next-gen consoles, Series X and PS5, but it's a new game, and I feel like every year the game should be looking better. Like, people are paying $90 for AAA games at this point. The game, you know, better be looking even just slightly better every single year to help kind of justify that price point, at least in my opinion. With that too, guys, I feel like we definitely need some more accurate player faces as well as player equipment. I think earlier on this year I tweeted out a picture of Scott Wedgwood, and not a single person knew that was Scott Wedgwood because it didn't look anything like him. Now, obviously, all the star players have game faces after being scanned into the game, but even some of those I feel like use a little bit of work, and the lesser known players like, you know, the backup goalies, fourth liners, etc., just because they don't have a game face doesn't mean they have to look so far off like Scott Wedgwood. Also too, I feel like a lot of guys, their equipment is just way off. Like they're using the wrong gloves, the wrong stick, their tape job isn't right, their skates aren't right. So little things like that obviously help make the game a lot more authentic. I think too, honestly, in regards to like the roster, a lot of players like have the wrong height, the wrong weight, sometimes even the wrong handedness. Those things need to be cleaned up. There's no reason why you can't double check that on Google and make sure the players are right. Obviously, young players, their height might change if they hit a growth spurt or whatever, but some guys, it should still be right. I remember Rasmussen, for instance, he was like 4 inches shorter than he was supposed to be for a long time, so they need to get those minor details right. Now, the next thing on my list, guys, is probably like the most broad statement I'm going to make, but that's just goalie improvements. I know there's a pretty big goalie community for the NHL games, and they always have different concerns, and I feel like a lot of times their voice doesn't get heard, so I really hope that like the controls for the goalie animations, the way they make saves, how the goalies play, even just the AI, are improved in this game. I don't play enough goalies to really comment on it, but I know there's a lot of goalie improvements that could be made, and I hope they get at least some of the ones that they're asking for. Now, after that, guys, I'd like to see some of the current gameplay exploits in NHL 22 fixed for 23. I think a big one is skating while holding poke check down to make your guy go faster. Hasn't been fixed yet. I know a lot of the competitive community really hate that. Along with that, too, I would say getting rid of some of the cheesy glitch goals. This, of course, does not mean like a cross crease, which is an actual NHL goal. This means actually kind of exploiting the game in a way that's not really supposed to be happening, to kind of score a goal every single time against the goalie just by, you know, making him move a weird way, get him out of position. After that, guys, I would like to see more crisp gameplay where the puck doesn't always go through the player's skates, their stick. I feel like probably the most annoying thing for me when playing the game is a really nice pass, you put it right to the guy, it goes through his skates, it goes through the stick. There's no reason you shouldn't have received that puck. We've had authentic puck pickups for I don't know how long, but it still doesn't really feel like that in game. And on the other side of that too, when playing defense, a lot of times you'll be right in the passing lane, your stick's on the ice, and it goes in between your stick and the skate. It goes through your stick, it goes through you somehow, and it's like you couldn't be better positioned, and it really feels like the game's robbing you whenever they score a goal off of a play like that. So to kind of clean that up and not have that happen, actually make it feel like your opponent earned that goal against you, I think would go a long way. After that, too, guys, I'd like to see more realistic presentation. A lot of people talk about, you know, potentially getting an ESPN package. Now that ESPN holds the NHL rights, I would be very happy with that, of course, if it's done right, if it's done well. As well, too, guys, so this one I think everyone wants to see, and that's being able to score the Zegras MILANO flip goal. I think after it happened, me and everyone else was trying to score in NHL 22. It didn't really work. You had to do like the Datsuk flip from behind the net, but like your guy was never going to like kind of smack it in the right way. It never quite looked right, so if they could actually add that to this game, I think that'd be sick. Obviously, they added the Michigan goal a couple years ago, so why not add that? And then finally, guys, I would just like to see some new X Factors. I feel like the X Factors you have are pretty cool, but there's definitely some more that they could add. A quick example off the top of my head, guys, would be like a hockey IQ X Factor. It would read something like, this player's always in the right position and makes the smart play. I think that could be the zone ability for someone like Jacob Slavin, for instance. So again, that's just one example. I feel like they could, you know, come up with a lot more. But that's gonna do it, guys, for my NHL 23 wish list video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments section other things you'd like to see in this game. Obviously anything that's not in NHL 23. Hopefully I can like relay information to the devs. And fingers crossed we'll get in NHL 24. But that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, leave that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the sub button down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.